The neon haze of Seoul's Itaewon district hung heavy in the night air, a cocktail of sizzling street food and exhaust fumes that clung to the skin like a bad memory. Li Mei navigated the crowded alleys with the practiced ease of someone who'd learned to blend into shadows. At 28, she'd crossed borders and oceans from her family's crumbling village in rural China, chasing whispers of opportunity in this sprawling metropolis. Now, she managed a modest import shop, silks, teas and knockoff jade that barely covered rent for her one-room apartment above a karaoke bar. But tonight, as rain slicked the pavement into mirrors of reflected lights, Mei felt the weight of eyes she couldn't quite place. It started with a package, not the usual trinket from Guangzhou, but a sealed wooden crate delivered to her shop that afternoon by a courier who wouldn't meet her gaze. "Special order," he'd muttered, vanishing into the throng before she could question the lack of paperwork. Inside, amid bolts of fabric, nestled a ledger, discreet leather-bound, its pages filled with coded entries, dates, routes, sums in won and yuan that screamed black market shipments, shipping manifests for docks along the Han River, vehicle plates scribbled in the margins, and names, Korean, Chinese, some crossed out with ominous finality. May's hands trembled as she flipped through it. This wasn't contraband tea. This was evidence of something darker, a web of smuggling that could drag her straight into the underbelly she avoided. She'd meant to burn it. But curiosity, that old betrayer, won out. Tucking the ledger under her coat, May slipped out after closing, heading toward the riverfront warehouses where the entries pointed. The Han's waters churned black under sodium lamps, the distant hum of generators mixing with the slap of waves against concrete pilings. Fog rolled in from the bridges, carrying the metallic tang of industry and something sharper. Gun oil. May crouched behind a stack of shipping containers, her breath fogging the chill air, watching as two men argued in hushed tones by a rusted freighter. "You're late, Han. The boss won't like this." The first man, stocky with a scarred jaw, gripped a burner phone like a weapon. His companion, wiry and twitchy, glanced over his shoulder. "It's the routes. Someone's tipping off the customs patrols. Plates don't match anymore." They unloaded crates under the cover of night, the clank of metal echoing like accusations. May edged closer, heart pounding, until a beam from a security light swept too near. She froze, but it passed. That's when she saw it. A subtle behavioral tell, the wiry man's hand slipping into his pocket not for a smoke, but for a small recorder. He was logging the exchange, his eyes darting not to his partner, but to the shadows, toward her. Before she could retreat, headlights pierced the fog. A black SUV screeched to a halt, doors flying open. Out stepped Kang Ji-hoon, the man whose name whispered through May's shop like a curse. At 35, he was the unchallenged Don of Seoul's Korean syndicates, his empire built on ironclad logistics, docks controlled, shipments untouchable, rivals vanished without trace. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from granite and eyes that missed nothing, Ji-hoon moved like the river itself, deceptively calm, lethally deep. Flanked by two guards in tailored suits, their earpieces crackling faintly, he approached the men with the measured stride of someone who owned the night. "You two idiots think I run blind." Ji-hoon's voice was low, edged with the precision of a blade. He snatched the ledger from the scarred man's hands. No, wait. That was May's ledger, the one she'd foolishly left peeking from her coat as she scrambled back. How had it gotten there? Panic surged. She'd dropped it in her haste. The wiry man bolted, but Ji-hoon's guard was faster, tackling him into the mud. "Boss, it's a setup," the man gasped. "She's got the real one, the Chinese girl, been tailing us." Ji-hoon's gaze locked on May as she emerged from the containers, rain dripping from her dark hair, the duplicate ledger clutched like a shield. Up close, his presence was suffocating, the scent of expensive cologne cutting through the damp rot. "You," he said, not a question. His eyes narrowed, assessing. That book, where'd you get it? May's mind raced. Lie, run. But his guards blocked the exits, their radios humming with updates. Perimeter clear, but we've got a tail on the East Bridge. Surveillance. She'd been watched since the package arrived, she realized. The courier's averted eyes, the special order that wasn't hers. This wasn't random. It was a hook, baited for someone like her, an outsider with ties to Chinese suppliers who could be leveraged or silenced. It was delivered to my shop by mistake, she stammered, her accent thickening under stress. I came to return it, that's all. Ji-hoon stepped closer, his breath warm against the chill. He plucked the ledger from her fingers, flipping it open with a flick that revealed his own coded shorthand in the margins. Mistake or invitation? His tone held no warmth, only calculation, but beneath it May caught a flicker, possessiveness, like a man guarding a fracture in his armor. Rivals had infiltrated his circle. This ledger exposed guard rotations, access codes for his warehouses, a betrayal from within, and she'd stumbled into the crossfire. One guard zip-tied the wiry man, who spat curses in Korean. She's with the Triad Snakes, boss. They laugh at us, marrying their spies to steal our roots. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. Marrying? The word hung absurd, but in the Mafia's twisted code, alliances were sealed in blood or vows. He studied May, her defiance masking fear, and something shifted. Get her in the car, he ordered, voice brooking no argument. We're not done here. As they bundled her toward the SUV, the rain intensified, drumming on the roof like urgent warnings. May twisted in the leather seat, the door locking with a solid thunk. Through the tinted window, she saw the scarred man dialing a number. Backup? Or a call to end it all? Ji-hoon slid in beside her, his thigh brushing hers in the confined space, radiating heat and unspoken threats. You've seen too much, he said quietly, as the vehicle peeled away, tires hissing on wet asphalt. But maybe you're useful. Ever think about changing sides? May's pulse thundered. Useful? Or trapped? And who exactly had sent that package? His enemies, or a ghost from his past, testing the man who never bent? As the city lights blurred into streaks, she wondered if survival meant stepping into his world, or if it would swallow her whole. The SUV cut through Seoul's rain-lashed streets, like a shadow detaching from the night, its engine a low growl that vibrated through the leather seats. Lee May pressed against the door, the cool glass fogging under her breath, as if she could will herself through it and vanish into the neon blur outside. Ji-hoon's presence filled the space beside her, solid, unyielding, his tailored jacket brushing her arm with every turn. The air inside carried the faint scent of sandalwood from his cologne, undercut by the metallic tang of the river still clinging to their clothes. One guard drove, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror, while the other in the passenger seat murmured into his earpiece, static crackling like distant thunder. You have a name? Ji-hoon asked, his voice cutting the silence without preamble. He didn't look at her, instead watching the side mirror, where the wipers slashed rhythmically against the downpour. May. Lee May. She kept her tone even, though her mind raced through escape routes. Kick the door, scream at a red light, anything. But the child locks clicked softly, and the streets here were his domain, lined with high-rises that loomed like silent sentinels. Lee May, he repeated, testing the syllables as if weighing their worth. Chinese import shop in Itaewon. Teas and silks, right? Been there 6 months. Before that, a stint in Busan, dodging the triads who thought your family owed them. His words landed like probes, each one revealing how deeply she'd been watched. Not just tonight. The package had been no mistake. It was a lure, cast into her life by someone who knew her vulnerabilities. Her stomach twisted. How do you... No. We keep tabs on anyone who touches our routes. Your suppliers in Guangzhou. They overlap with ours. When that ledger showed up at your door, it wasn't random. He finally turned to her, his dark eyes reflecting the passing street lamps in sharp glints. There was no anger there, only a possessive curiosity, like a collector appraising a rare find. Question is, who sent it to you? A rival trying to frame you as the leak? Or someone in my crew testing loyalties? Mace swallowed, the leather-bound book now tucked into his coat pocket, a ghost between them. She glimpsed more pages during the scuffle. Entries noting guard rotations at the Han River docks, shifts that matched the argument she'd overheard, and a scrawled plate number for a white van, circled in red. Subtle tells of internal rot, like the wiry man's recorder, suggesting a double agent feeding info to the Chinese triads. But admitting she knew any of it would tie her tighter to this web. "I don't know your world," she said, meeting his gaze. "I'm just trying to survive in mine. That package, I thought it was a mix-up from a client. I came to the river to drop it off, not spy." Ji-hoon chuckled, a low sound without humor. "Survival, that's what they all say until the river claims them." He leaned back, the SUV slowing as it approached a gated compound on the outskirts of Gangnam, where the city's pulse faded into manicured isolation. Iron barriers slid open with a hydraulic whine, revealing a sprawling mansion veiled in floodlights and razor wire. Security cameras swiveled like watchful eyes, their red LEDs piercing the rain. The driveway curved past koi ponds that shimmered unnaturally calm, the air here smelling of wet stone and blooming jasmine, a stark contrast to the industrial rot of the docks. As the vehicle halted under a portico, guards materialized from the shadows, umbrellas snapping open. Ji-hoon exited first, extending a hand she ignored, stepping into the downpour instead. Water streamed down her face, mixing with the chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Inside, the foyer was a fortress disguised as opulence. Marble floors echoing their footsteps, walls lined with abstract art that hid panic buttons, and the faint hum of generators underscoring the luxury. A housekeeper, older, Korean, with eyes that darted too quickly, offered towels, but Ji-hoon waved her away. "Escort," he said to his men, then to May. "You'll stay here tonight. Guest room. Locked from the outside. We talk in the morning." "Locked?" Her voice sharpened, autonomy flaring against his casual command. "I'm not a prisoner. You're safer that way." He paused at the base of a sweeping staircase, the ledger half visible in his pocket. "Someone wants you in this mess. The triads laugh at us Koreans for our old codes. No innocents harmed, debts paid in full. But they've been pushing boundaries, marrying in spies to steal shipments. If you're clean, you walk. If not." His eyes held hers, a push-pull of suspicion and something deeper, a code that restrained his power even as it bound her. She followed him up, the carpet muffling her steps, unease building with each creak of the banister. The guest room was lavish, silk sheets, a balcony overlooking the gardens, but the door clicked shut behind her with electronic finality. Through the window, she spotted a figure in the tree line, phone to ear, rain sheeting off a hooded coat. Surveillance, or a watcher from the other side. Alone, May paced, the room's air conditioner whispering like secrets. She replayed the drive. The guard's radio chatter about a white van on the East Bridge, matching the ledger's plate. A trail, perhaps, left deliberately. Her phone, confiscated at the door, left her isolated. But she noticed a landline, monitored, no doubt. Curiosity warred with fear. Burning the ledger had been her plan, but now it pulled her deeper. Down the hall, Ji-hoon stood in his study, the ledger open under a desk lamp's glow. Pages revealed more. An access code for his private vault, scrawled by a hand he recognized. His lieutenant, the scarred man from the docks. Betrayal, raw and personal, a past loss echoing his father's unsolved murder by triad infiltrators. Vows kept under pressure, he'd protect his own, even if it meant allying with an outsider like her. As thunder rumbled outside, a power flicker dimmed the lights. May froze at her door, hearing footsteps. Too many, too urgent. Was it a false alarm, or had the white van arrived, turning the mansion into a trap? And if Ji-hoon unlocked that door, would he see her as ally or the key to his undoing? The lights in the guest room stuttered back to life with a reluctant hum, casting long shadows across the silk-draped bed. Li Mei pressed her ear to the door, the wood cool against her skin, as the footsteps outside multiplied. Boots on marble, urgent whispers in Korean slicing through the sudden silence. Her heart hammered like a trapped bird, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth drifting in from the balcony. Was it Ji-hoon's men securing the perimeter? Or had the white van's occupants breached the gates, turning this gilded cage into a kill box? Down the hall in the study, Kang Ji-hoon gripped the edge of his desk, the ledger's pages splayed under the lamp like an accusation. The power dip had been no storm's whim. The mansion's generators kicked in seamlessly, but the flicker revealed vulnerabilities. Wiring tampered with, perhaps, or a signal jammer testing the system's limits. His lieutenant, the scarred man from the docks, had been too quick to dial that number earlier, his eyes lingering on May with a hunger that spoke of grudges deeper than business. Ji-hoon's code demanded loyalty, a vow forged in the ashes of his father's betrayal by Triad spies years ago, but cracks were forming. The ledger's access code for the vault matched the one only his inner circle knew. Codes rotated weekly, yet this one was outdated by design, a deliberate leak to draw out the rat. "Status!" Ji-hoon barked into his radio, the device crackling in his palm. The voice on the other end, his head of security, a veteran with a voice like gravel, responded clipped. "False alarm, boss." Lightning strike tripped a substation. Perimeter's tight, but we've got eyes on that white van circling the east access road. Plate matches the ledger. It's Han's ride, the wiry one we nabbed. Ji-hoon's jaw clenched, the room's air conditioner whispering over the faint buzz of surveillance feeds on his monitors. Han had been a low-level runner, but the recorder May spotted suggested more. Audio logs of shipments, behavioral tells like his twitchy glances toward hidden cameras. If Han was feeding triads, it explained the customs tips, the routes going cold. And May? She'd walked into it, but her shop's ties to Guangzhou made her a perfect scapegoat or pawn. He couldn't afford loose ends, yet releasing her meant risking exposure. Possessiveness stirred, unbidden. In a world of betrayals, her defiance felt like a rare anchor, challenging his iron control. A knock echoed, sharp, insistent. Ji-hoon crossed to the door, unlocking it with a biometric scan that beeped softly. The scarred lieutenant stood there, rain dripping from his coat, his face a mask of feigned concern. "Boss, the girl's secure. We swept the grounds. Nothing, but the storm's masking any tales." "Secure enough." Ji-hoon's eyes bored into him, noting the subtle shift. A fresh bulge in the man's pocket. Not a gun, but a phone. Burner, likely. "What about Han? He talk yet?" The lieutenant shrugged, too casual. "Singing like a bird. Says the Chinese girl planted the package working for the Triads to infiltrate. They laugh at us, marrying their spies into our families to steal everything." Ji-hoon stepped closer, the air between them charged like the storm outside. "Marrying. You push that narrative hard tonight." His voice was low, a blade sheathed in silk. The word evoked old wounds, his own aborted alliance years back, a Triad bride who'd poisoned his trust before vanishing with secrets. But May wasn't that. Her fear was real, her eyes holding ethics he hadn't seen in his own ranks. Autonomy clashed with his need to protect, to bind what threatened to unravel. Before the lieutenant could respond, a muffled thud came from the guest wing, glass shattering. Ji-hoon's hand went to his sidearm, the cool metal grounding him as he strode down the hall, the lieutenant trailing. The door to May's room hung ajar, the lock's electronics fried from the surge, sparks flickering in the panel. Inside, May stood by the balcony doors, shards of a broken vase at her feet. She'd hurled it at an intruder? No. The glass was from the French doors, forced open by the wind, but the tree-lined figure was gone, vanished into the downpour. "What happened?" Ji-hoon demanded, scanning the shadows. May whirled, her dark hair wild, chest heaving. The room smelled of shattered porcelain and ozone, the storm's fury rattling the remnants. I heard voices outside, Korean, then something in Mandarin. The door unlocked during the blackout, I thought. She trailed off, eyes darting to the lieutenant behind him, suspicion flaring. "He was watching me earlier, from the garden." The scarred man's face paled, a tell Ji-hoon caught, the micro-twitch of his scarred jaw. "She's lying, boss. Triad tricks, stirring trouble." Ji-hoon silenced him with a glance, moving to the balcony. Below, the koi pond rippled unnaturally, a dark shape bobbing, a discarded burner phone, screen cracked but glowing with a message. "She's the key. Marry or lose the roots." Triads pushing their infiltration game, using May as bait to fracture his code. But why her? The ledger's margins held a new clue, glimpsed now in the lamplight. Her shop's address circled, dated before the package delivery. Someone in his circle had targeted her deliberately, weaving her into the betrayal. "Get the grounds searched," Ji-hoon ordered the lieutenant, his tone brooking no delay. "And you, stay." He turned to May as the man retreated, footsteps echoing down the stairs. The rain lashed the broken doors, carrying the distant wail of sirens. Police, or a diversion? May crossed her arms, independence warring with the fear in her eyes. "You can't just lock me away. If this is about that ledger, let me go. I didn't ask for your world. And leave you to the wolves." Ji-hoon's voice softened fractionally, the push-pull evident in his stance, close enough to shield, far enough to assess. "The triads don't play by codes. They take what they want. But you saw the river, the docks. You could help unravel this." She hesitated, the storm's thunder underscoring the tension. Help or entrapment? As lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the tree line, May spotted a glint. Metal, a scope? The white van's engine growled faintly in the distance, closing in. Had the lieutenant called it, tipping the scales? And if Ji-hoon trusted her now, would that vow bind them in ways neither could escape, or shatter everything under the weight of hidden ledgers and whispered alliances? If you're enjoying this story so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The storm's fury battered the mansion's windows like an unrelenting assault, rain sheeting across the glass in relentless waves that distorted the garden lights into watery halos. Lee May backed away from the balcony, her bare feet crunching on the porcelain shards, the sharp scent of ozone mingling with the earthy petrichor seeping through the broken doors. Ji-hoon's silhouette filled the doorway, his broad frame a barrier against the chaos outside, but his eyes, dark and unreadable, swept the room with the precision of a man cataloguing threats. The distant growl of the white van's engine grew louder, tires churning gravel on the access road. A low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. "Down!" Ji-hoon commanded, his voice a whip crack over the thunder. He grabbed her arm, pulling her behind the heavy velvet curtains as footsteps pounded up the stairs, his guards, radios crackling with urgent Korean. May twisted free, her pulse thundering, autonomy surging against his grip. "What's happening? That van, it's them, isn't it?" He didn't answer immediately, instead drawing his sidearm with a fluid motion, the metallic click echoing in the confined space. Through a slit in the curtains, she glimpsed the tree line. Shadows shifting, the glint of metal resolving into rifle barrels under hooded coats. Not wind, intruders slipping through the storm's cover like ghosts. The lieutenant's absence gnawed at her. His retreat down the stairs felt too deliberate, a behavioral tell she'd caught in his averted gaze earlier, the way his scarred jaw had tightened at her accusation. "Perimeter breach!" A guard's voice barked from the hall, static-laced. 2. No. 4 hostiles. East gates jammed. Lieutenants not responding. Ji-hoon's face hardened, the pieces snapping into place. The tampered lock on her door, the power flicker. It wasn't random sabotage. It was a coordinated hit, exploiting the storm to mask their approach. He holstered the weapon and snatched the burner phone from the koi pond below. Visible now through the rain-streaked glass, its screen flickering with that damning message. She's the key, marry or lose the roots. Triads, all right, but the lieutenant's hand was all over this. His pocketed phone, the quick dial at the docks. Betrayal, personal and venomous, echoing the triad infiltration that had claimed Ji-hoon's father, a loss that had forged his code. Protect the innocent, even if it meant restraining his own ruthless instincts. We need to move, he said, turning to May. His tone brooked no argument, but beneath the command lurked a flicker of vulnerability, the push of possessiveness warring with her evident fear. Safe house by the river. My convoy's en route, but we can't wait. May shook her head, stepping back toward the bed, the silk sheets rumpled like unspoken doubts. Move with you after locking me in? I don't know who to trust, your men or the shadows out there. Her ethics clashed against the fear knotting her gut. She'd crossed borders to escape family debts to the triads, not dive deeper into their games. But the ledger's weight lingered in her mind, those shipping manifests, the circled address of her shop. If she ran now, she'd be hunted alone, a loose thread in their web. A sharp crack split the night, gunfire, muffled by the rain, followed by shouts from the grounds. Ji-hoon yanked her toward the door, his hand firm on her elbow. Trust me or die out there, your choice. The hallway was a frenzy. Guards in tactical vests hustling, the air thick with the acrid smell of cordite wafting up from below. They descended the sweeping staircase, 2 steps at a time, marble cool underfoot. Past the foyer where the housekeeper cowered behind a console table, her eyes wide with terror. Outside, under the portico, chaos reigned. The white van had breached the inner drive, its headlights cutting through the downpour like accusatory beams, doors sliding open to disgorge masked figures. Ji-hoon's men returned fire, muzzle flashes illuminating the koi pond in staccato bursts, the water erupting in splashes. A guard crumpled nearby, clutching his shoulder, non-fatal but the injury a stark cost of the breach. Ji-hoon shoved May into a waiting armored sedan, its engine already idling with a throaty purr, tires spinning mud as it peeled away. The lieutenant appeared then, bursting from the shadows near the garage, his coat torn, face smeared with rain and something darker. Guilt. Boss! They came through the service tunnel, Han's crew, but more. I held the line. Liar! Ji-hoon snarled from the window, the sedan lurching forward. He held up the burner phone, its screen illuminating his features in cold blue. This yours? The message, it's your script, feeding them my codes, using her to fracture us. The man's eyes widened, a micro-tell of confirmation, before he bolted toward the van's flank. But a guard's shot dropped him mid-stride, the body thudding into the gravel, a sacrifice to the code, loyalty enforced at gunpoint. May gripped the door handle, the leather seats slick with rainwater, as the sedan barreled down the winding drive. Sirens wailed in the distance, institutional limits closing in, police drawn by the storm's diversions, or a triad-staged false alarm. The Han River loomed ahead, its black waters churning under the bridges, warehouses hulking like forgotten beasts along the banks. Ji-hoon's phone buzzed, a secure line from his second-in-command. Convoy's 5 minutes out. Intercepted a message. Triads want the girl for leverage. Her family's old debt in Guangzhou. They're calling it in. The revelation hit May like the rain's chill. The package, the ledger. It traced back to her past, not just his. The triads had used her as bait, laughing at the Korean boss's rigid vows while infiltrating through marriage ploys and old grudges. Ji-hoon glanced at her, his expression a storm of its own, suspicion yielding to a reluctant protectiveness. "They won't touch you, not while you're with me." She met his gaze, the sedan's headlights sweeping the fog-shrouded road. "With you? Or owned by you?" The words hung between them, autonomy clashing with the bond, forming in the fire of betrayal. As the white van's taillights flickered in the rear view, pursuing, relentless, the river's hum grew louder, a promise of deeper dangers. But who had tipped the triads to her exact position tonight, and would Ji-hoon's code hold when the convoy arrived, or would it demand a vow neither was ready to make? The sedan's tires sluiced through puddles on the rain-slicked highway, the Han River's black expanse unfolding ahead like a vein pulsing under Seoul's underbelly. Li Mei clutched the armrest, the leather creaking under her fingers as the dashboard lights cast Ji-hoon's profile in stark relief, jaw set, eyes locked on the rear view where the white van's high beams bored through the fog like predatory eyes. The air inside hummed with the low thrum of the engine and the intermittent crackle of his radio, voices overlapping in clipped Korean. "Convoy ETA 3 minutes. Hostiles gaining, jammers active on their end." Ji-hoon's hand rested on the gear shift, knuckles white, his cologne, a sharp note of sandalwood, clashing with the damp chill seeping through the seals. He didn't glance at her, but his presence pressed in, a wall of restrained power that both shielded and confined. "Your family debt," he said finally, voice low over the wiper's rhythmic slap. "Guangzhou triads. How deep?" Mei turned, rain-streaked windows blurring the city lights into abstract smears. Her past wasn't a secret she'd hidden well. Whispers of it had followed her across borders, a ledger of its own in unpaid loans from her father's failed silk mill, but voicing it here, in this armored cocoon, hurtling toward danger, felt like handing over a key. "Old, 10 years. They think I can pay it back through. Connections." Her accent thickened, ethics warring with the survival instinct that had kept her alive in Itaewon's shadows. "I left to escape, not join your war." He nodded once, the motion economical, but his eyes flicked to her. Assessing, possessive in a way that ignited her independence like a spark to dry tinder. Connections like marriage, that's their game. Infiltrate, bind, steal. The word marriage landed heavy, echoing the lieutenant's taunts, the burner's message. Ji-hoon's code forbade harming innocents, a vow etched from his father's murder, a triad bride's betrayal that had cost lives and legacy. Yet here he was, pulling her deeper, prudence clashing with the ambition to root out the rot threatening his empire. A jolt rocked the sedan as the white van rammed their rear bumper, metal grinding in a screech that set May's teeth on edge. The driver swore, swerving onto the shoulder, gravel spitting under the tires. Through the side mirror, she saw masked faces in the van's windows, barrels glinting, rifles, not for show. "They're closing," the driver barked. "Boss, tunnel ahead, Han River underpass. We lose them there?" Ji-hoon unholstered his sidearm again, the click deliberate. "Do it! May, stay low!" His free hand brushed her shoulder, a fleeting anchor that sent a conflicted shiver through her, trust budding amid suspicion, his code a fragile bridge over the abyss. The underpass loomed, a concrete maw swallowing the highway, sodium lights flickering overhead like stuttering heartbeats. The air grew cooler, damper, carrying the river's briny tang mixed with exhaust fumes that fogged the windshield. As they plunged in, the van surged forward, its grille kissing their tail again. May twisted, peering back. The wiry man, Han, leaned from the passenger window, face twisted in rage, shouting something lost to the roar. But his eyes locked on hers, a tell raw hatred for the Chinese girl, blamed for his capture. Inside the tunnel, Visibility dropped to a claustrophobic gloom, walls streaked with condensation that dripped like sweat. Ji-hoon's radio spat urgency. Convoys pinned, bridge blockade. Triads staged a wreck up ahead. Human error or calculated. The ledger's clues resurfaced in May's mind. Shipping manifests for this very underpass. Guard rotations skipped on stormy nights. The lieutenant's betrayal had paved this path. Access codes shared to let the van slip through patrols. "Pull over!" Ji-hoon ordered suddenly, the sedan lurching to a halt in a service alcove, shadows pooling around concrete pillars etched with faded graffiti. The white van braked hard behind them, doors slamming as figures spilled out, 4 hooded, weapons raised. Rain echoed off the tunnel roof, a staccato drumbeat underscoring the standoff. May slid lower, heart slamming against her ribs, the cold seeping from the floor mats. Ji-hoon exited with predatory grace, using the sedan's door as cover, his voice booming. "Han, you think the triads will shield you? That recorder you hid, it's on my desk. Every word, every route you sold." The wiry man stepped forward, rain sheeting off his jacket, a pistol trembling in his grip. "You Koreans and your codes never harm innocents. She's the innocent. The triads own her blood debt. Marry her and watch your empire bleed." His words were a venomous laugh, but his stance betrayed nerves, a foot shifting back, eyes darting to the tunnel's mouth where distant headlights approached. Behavioral tell, waiting for backup, not confrontation. Ji-hoon fired once, the shot cracking like thunder, shattering a side mirror on the van. Han ducked, his men scattering behind pillars, bullets ricocheting off concrete in sparks and whines. May covered her ears, the acrid bite of gunpowder invading the cab. No gore, just the chaos of survival. Ji-hoon's men would extract at cost, but exposure loomed if police scanners picked up the exchange. From the shadows, May spotted it, a discarded shipping manifest fluttering in the draft wedged under the van's tire. Clues, vehicle plates matching the ledger, a discreet entry for underpass drop 2 a.m. She'd glimpsed it earlier at the docks. Now it confirmed the infiltration. Triads using old debts to force alliances, laughing at Ji-hoon's vows. The radio crackled life. "Boss, we're through. 2 minutes." But the van's crew pressed, one figure circling wide, aiming for the sedan. May froze as the door handle rattled, jammed. No, unlocked in the frenzy. She grabbed a loose tire iron from the floor, swinging it through the window gap as the attacker lunged. The impact thudded dully, sending him sprawling, but not before his knife sliced the door panel, inches from her arm. Ji-hoon whirled, covering her with suppressing fire, the push-pull evident in his shout, "Get in the back, now!" She scrambled over the seat, adrenaline surging, autonomy yielding to the bond forged in the tunnel's dim hell. As the convoy's lights pierced the far end, armored SUVs roaring in, Han fired wildly, a bullet pinging the sedan's hood. Retreat or escalation? The white van peeled away first, tires squealing into the gloom, but not before Han hurled something, a smoke grenade. Blackout billowed, choking the air with chemical haze. Ji-hoon's hand found hers in the dark, pulling her toward the emerging convoy, the river's hum vibrating through the walls. Victory, but at what cost? The manifest lay trampled, its secrets half revealed, and May's debt now intertwined with his legacy. As they burst into the storm-lashed night, sirens wailing closer, she wondered, had the triads forced his hand toward that absurd marriage ploy, or would unraveling the ledger demand a deeper vow, one that changed them both forever? The convoy burst from the tunnel's maw like a beast shaking off chains, armored SUVs slicing through the storm with headlights carving defiant paths in the downpour. Lee May huddled in the sedan's back seat, the tire iron still clutched in her white-knuckled grip, its cold weight a crude reminder of the line she'd crossed, from bystander to combatant in Ji-hoon's shadowed war. The air inside reeked of gunpowder residue and wet leather, the wipers slashing furiously against the relentless rain that hammered the roof like accusatory fists. Ji-hoon rode shotgun now, his broad shoulders tense, barking coordinates into the radio as the lead vehicle veered toward a concealed riverside access point, away from the siren's encroaching wail. "Head for the old dockside safe house," he ordered, his voice a gravelly anchor amid the chaos. The driver nodded, navigating the fog-shrouded backroads where Seoul's glittering skyline gave way to industrial sprawl. Rusted cranes silhouetted against the Han's churning blackness, the distant clank of shipping containers echoing like metallic ghosts. May's mind reeled, piecing together the night's fractures. The lieutenant's betrayal confirmed in that final damning glance before his fall. Han's wild shots, laced with triad venom, and her own family's debt, a noose tightening from across the sea. The ledger, now stashed in Ji-hoon's coat, felt like a ticking bomb, its pages a map of rot, from tampered guard rotations to those circled plates that had led the white van straight to the mansion. The safe house materialized as a nondescript warehouse on the river's edge, its facade weathered by years of salt spray and neglect, the air outside thick with the briny tang of water and diesel fumes from idling generators. Chain-link fences rattled in the wind, topped with coiled barbed wire that gleamed under security floods. The convoy halted in a gravel lot, engines cutting to a hush broken only by the river's lap and the patter of rain on corrugated roofs. Guards fanned out, their boots crunching wet stone, earpieces humming with sweeps. Clear inside, no tails on the approach. Ji-hoon exited first, scanning the shadows with the instinctive wariness of a man who'd lost too much to complacency. He extended a hand to May through the open door, rain beading on his sleeve like reluctant jewels. Inside, now. His tone held no room for debate, but his eyes, dark pools reflecting the sodium glow, betrayed the internal fray, possessiveness clashing with the respect her swing of that tire iron had earned, a glimpse of the fighter beneath her guarded exterior. She ignored the hand, stepping out on her own, the chill seeping through her soaked clothes like icy fingers. "This changes nothing," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her limbs. "Your world, your codes, I'm not part of it." Ethics burned in her chest. She'd fled China to claim autonomy, not trade one debt for another's gilded trap. Yet the triad's message lingered, twisting marriage into a weapon, their laughter a spectre mocking Ji-hoon's vows from afar. The warehouse interior was a fortress of contrasts. Exposed brick walls dripping condensation, the faint hum of dehumidifiers underscoring the scent of oiled metal and stale coffee from a corner pot. Folding tables held maps and laptops, screens flickering with surveillance feeds, camera angles from the docks, access logs for the underpass. A medic tended the injured guard from the mansion, his shoulder bandaged efficiently, the soft groan, a human cost etched in the dim light. Ji-hoon led her to a side room, a sparse office with a single bulb swinging overhead, casting elongated shadows that danced like unspoken suspicions. He spread the ledger on the desk, its leather creased from the night's abuse, pages rustling like dry leaves. "Look," he said, pointing to a new entry May hadn't noticed before. A discreet ledger notation dated yesterday, listing her shop's address alongside a Guangzhou contact, her uncle's name, the one who'd vouched for her suppliers. "This isn't random. The triads didn't just use your debt. They planted the package to draw you in, make you the perfect wedge. Han was their inside man, but the lieutenant, he fed them your movements weeks ago." May's breath caught, the pieces slotting into a grim mosaic. The courier's averted eyes, the special order, all orchestrated to ensnare her, leveraging old family ties to fracture Ji-hoon's empire. She traced the scrawled routes, shipments rerouted through Chinese ports, some siphoned via burner phones, traced to Itaewon safe drops. Subtle behavioral tells resurfaced. The lieutenant's twitchy dial at the docks. Hans' recorder logging not just deals, but her approach. "Why me?" she whispered, anger flaring against the fear. "To force your hand? Make you marry a spy and watch it all crumble?" Ji-hoon leaned against the desk, arms crossed, the bulb's light hollowing his cheeks. "They think my code's a weakness. Never harm outsiders, always honor debts. Father's death taught me that restraint builds legacy, but they twist it into chains." His voice softened, a rare fracture in the granite facade, revealing the man shaped by loss, a past alliance soured by betrayal, vows that restrained ambition even as they fueled it. "Marrying you, it's their ploy, but if it shields you, binds us against them." He trailed off. The push-pull evident in his halted step closer, the air between them charged like the storm outside. She met his gaze, independence surging. "Shields or owns, I won't be a pawn in your vows." But curiosity hooked her. The ledger's clues promised unraveling, a way to sever her debt and expose the triad's infiltration. Outside, a guard's radio crackled. Eyes on a boat approaching the dock. Small craft, no lights. Could be diversion. Tension coiled tighter, the warehouse's walls seeming to close in with the river's muffled roar. Ji-hoon straightened, hand drifting to his sidearm. "We check it, together." May nodded, the tire iron traded for a flashlight, her resolve hardening. As they moved toward the rear exit, the door creaking open to reveal the rain-lashed pier, crates stacked like silent witnesses, the water's surface rippling with unnatural urgency. She spotted it, a waterproof pouch snagged on a piling, bobbing in the current. Inside, a burner phone and shipping manifest, plates matching the white van's escape route. But as thunder rolled, masking the faint putt-putt of an approaching motor, May wondered, was this another plant, luring them into the open, or the key to turning the triad's laughter into silence? And if Ji-hoon's code demanded a deeper alliance now, would it save them, or demand a sacrifice that reshaped everything? If this tale already has you hooked, hit the like button. It helps us bring more hidden stories to light. The rain had eased to a persistent drizzle, turning the warehouse pier into a slick mosaic of puddles that reflected the erratic flicker of security lights. Li Mei gripped the flashlight tightly, its beam cutting through the gloom like a hesitant blade, illuminating the bobbing waterproof pouch snagged on the piling. The Han River's current tugged at it insistently, a low gurgle underscoring the distant putt-putt of the approaching motor, too steady for a fisherman's whim, too stealthy for patrol boats. Ji-hoon's silhouette loomed beside her, his breath visible in the chill air, carrying the faint metallic tang of the water mixed with the warehouse's diesel hum. Guards flanked the edges of the pier, their boots scraping wet concrete, rifles held low but ready, earpieces whispering updates that blended with the night's symphony of creaking crates and lapping waves. "Cover the flanks," Ji-hoon murmured into his radio, his voice a controlled rumble that barely disturbed the fog rolling in from the river's bend. He knelt by the piling, fishing the pouch free with a gloved hand, water sluicing off it in dark rivulets. Inside, the burner phone was sodden but intact, its screen lighting up with a single unread message when he powered it on. "Det calls, Dock 7, midnight. Bring the girl or roots, burn." No sender, but the timestamp matched the underpass ambush. Triads, closing the noose with precision logistics, using her family's old ledger of obligations as leverage. May's stomach knotted, the beam of her light trembling slightly as it swept the dark water. Dock 7 was a stone's throw upriver, a shadowed stretch of abandoned berths where shipments once vanished into the night. The manifest tucked beside the phone confirmed it. Faded ink listing Guangzhou inbound, white van escort, plates circled in the same hand as the warehouse ledger. Subtle tells, guard rotations skipped for weather delays, access codes for the pier's service gate. "This is my uncle's route," she said, voice tight, ethics clashing with the betrayal's sting. "He warned me about the debts, but not this. They're using me to hit you where it hurts, your codes, your vows." Ji-hoon rose, pocketing the items, his eyes locking on hers with that possessive intensity that both repelled and drew her in. The push-pull was palpable now, amplified by the isolation of the peer, his world demanding loyalty, hers screaming for escape from the shadows that had chased her across borders. "They think marriage is the fracture point," he replied, low and edged. "Bind an outsider, watch the empire crack. But my father's loss taught me restraint builds stronger. Never let them touch innocence." Yet his stance betrayed the strain, broad shoulders squared against the fog, the river's chill seeping into his coat like doubt. A guard signaled from the warehouse door, his face pale under the floodlights. "Boss, the boat's slowing. Small craft, 2 aboard, no response to hails. Could be a probe." The motor's putt-putt grew louder, resolving into the silhouette of a low-slung skiff emerging from the mist, its hull scraping pilings with a dull thud. No lights, just the outline of 2 figures, one hunched at the tiller, the other scanning the shore with binoculars that caught the security glow. May stepped back instinctively, the concrete rough under her shoes, heart pounding in sync with the river's pulse. "We can't just wait. If it's them, they'll hit the safe house next. Your convoy's exposed." Autonomy flared. She wouldn't be the passive key in their game, not when the clues pointed to her own blood ties, unraveling everything. Ji-hoon nodded, signaling his men to advance, but the air crackled with unease. A false alarm, or the environment turning hazardous? Thunder grumbled offshore, and suddenly the security lights stuttered, a blackout rippling across the pier like a staged diversion. Generators whined to life seconds later, but the delay was enough. The skiff's figures moved, one leaping to the dock with rope in hand, the other revving the motor in retreat. "Secure the pier!" Ji-hoon barked, drawing his sidearm as he strode forward, May at his heels, despite the fear coiling in her gut. The intruder was wiry, hooded, dropping a satchel before scrambling back to the boat. Human error in the haste, or deliberate. The skiff peeled away into the fog, motor fading into the night, leaving only the satchel's thud and the guard's shouts. Ji-hoon kicked it open warily, revealing stacks of burner phones wrapped in plastic alongside a discreet ledger fragment, names, dates, and a photo. Her outside her Itaewon shop, time-stamped weeks ago. Surveillance deep and personal, tying her debt to the Triad's infiltration plan. One guard pursued to the water's edge, firing a warning shot that echoed off the warehouses, but the skiff vanished around the bend. "Lost visual," he reported, breathless. "But that boat's plate matches the manifest. Guangzhou registry, fake but traceable." Ji-hoon's jaw tightened, the revelation sinking in. The Triads hadn't just planted the original package. They'd mapped her life, using family grudges to orchestrate the laughs at his expense. The lieutenant's betrayal was the tip, Han and others woven in, turning internal codes against him. May knelt by the satchel, rifling through the phones. One buzzed, a voice message in clipped Mandarin. "The Korean's code blinds him. Marry her, seal the alliance, or watch her pay the debt in blood." Her uncle's voice, strained, coerced. Tears pricked her eyes, but anger won out, independence demanding she confront this, not flee. "He's trapped too," she said, standing to face Ji-hoon. "The Triads own pieces of us both. If we go to Dock 7, we end it. Expose their roots, cut the strings." He searched her face, the fog curling around them like whispered doubts, loyalty versus fear etching lines in his brow. "End it, or bind us deeper?" His hand hovered near hers, not touching, the possessiveness restrained by his vow. The warehouse lights hummed back fully, but a new sound cut through, tires on gravel, distant but closing, convoy reinforcements, or the white van's kin drawn by the probe. As the drizzle thickened into mist, May realized the true cost. Victory would demand sacrifice, her ethics tested against his legacy. But who manned that approaching vehicle, and would, unraveling the final ledger thread, forge their future, or drag them under the river's unforgiving current? The mist clung to the pier like a shroud, thickening the air with the river's briny chill and the faint, oily residue of the skiff's exhaust. Li Mei stood rigid, the flashlight's beams slicing through the haze to catch the glint of headlights emerging from the gravel path. Two sets, low and purposeful, cutting off the warehouse's silhouette. Ji-hoon's hand tightened on his sidearm, the metal cool against his palm, as guards melted into position behind stacked crates, their breaths fogging in the damp night. The putt-putt of the retreating boat echoed faintly from upriver, a mocking coda to the tension coiling tighter than barbed wire. "Reinforcements," Ji-hoon murmured, voice low and edged with calculation. The vehicles resolved into familiar armored SUVs, tires crunching to a halt with a spray of mud. His second-in-command emerged from the lead car, face etched with rain and urgency, a laptop case clutched under one arm. "Boss, we traced the boat, Guangzhou markings, but it's a decoy. Dock 7's hot, patrol's jammed, but we've got eyes on a meet. Your uncle's signal pinged there, May. Coerced, looks like." May's pulse thrummed, the words landing like stones in still water. Her uncle, trapped in the triad's web, his voice on that burner a fracture in her family's fragile autonomy. The ledger fragment in her pocket burned like evidence. Its roots pointed to Dock 7 as the nexus, where shipments bled into infiltration, holdets laundered through forced alliances. "We go," she said, meeting Ji-hoon's gaze, independence flaring against the fear. "End this tonight. No more proxies." He nodded, the push-pull in his eyes, a possessive resolve tempered by respect for her fire. "Together, then." The convoy reformed swiftly, engines growling to life as they peeled away from the safe house, headlights piercing the fog-shrouded backroads. The Han River flanked them, its waters a black mirror under the occasional sodium lamp, the distant hum of generators from riverside factories underscoring the isolation. Inside the lead SUV, Ji-hoon pored over the laptop feeds, camera angles from hidden docks, access codes scrolling like digital veins. "They've staged a blackout protocol. Lights out on approach. Lieutenant's work, he fed them the rotations." The drive blurred into a tense symphony of wiper blades and radio static, rain pattering on the roof like impatient fingers. May traced the manifest's edges, clues unfolding, burner phone logs tying Han's recorder to her uncle's shipments, behavioral tells in the timestamps, nights when her Itaewon shop received special orders that weren't hers. The triad's plan crystallized. Use her debt to bait Ji-hoon into a sham marriage, fracturing his code from within, stealing roots under the guise of alliance. Laughter from afar, but real logistics, jamming signals, coerced kin, made it deadly. Dock 7 materialized as a labyrinth of rusted gantries and shadowed berths, the air thick with the creak of moored freighters and the metallic tang of wet chains. The convoy halted at the perimeter fence, guards cutting through with bolt cutters, the snip echoing like a verdict. Blackout hit as predicted, floodlights dying in a cascade, plunging the area into inky void, broken only by the river's phosphorescent ripples and distant city glow. Ji-hoon led the way, flashlight minimized to a red glow, May close behind, the concrete slick underfoot. A muffled argument drifted from a nearby warehouse, Mandarin laced with Korean curses. They crept closer, hugging the walls where graffiti flaked like old skin. The scent of stale fish and engine grease heavy in the confined space. Peering through a cracked loading door, May spotted her uncle, bound to a chair, face bruised but defiant, flanked by two triad enforcers in dark coats. Han stood nearby, wiry frame twitching, a ledger open on a crate, the original pages detailing siphoned routes and marriage ploys scrawled in margins. You Koreans cling to codes like relics, Han sneered, voice carrying over the rain's patter on the tin roof. The boss marries the girl, pays her debt. We take the docks clean, or she sinks with her uncle. Ji-hoon's signal was subtle, a hand gesture to his men, and the breach came swift, guards surging through side entrances, the scuffle a blur of grapples and thuds in the dark. No shots fired yet. Ji-hoon's vow held, restraining the chaos to hand, the environment turning hazardous as a toppled crate spilled oil, feet sliding on the slick floor. May darted in, flashlight blinding an enforcer long enough for a guard to zip-tie him, her uncle's eyes widening in shock and relief. Han bolted for the rear exit, but Ji-hoon intercepted, tackling him against a pallet of manifests that scattered like confetti, clues spilling, plates for ghost vans, access codes for triad safe houses. "It's over," Ji-hoon growled, pinning him. "Your recorder caught it all. Betrayals logged, debts twisted. The laughter ends here." The wiry man spat, struggling. "She changes nothing. The triads own her blood." May knelt by her uncle, cutting his bonds with a utility knife from a guard, the rope fraying under the blade. "Not any more!" Her voice cracked, but resolve steadied it. The cost hit then. A guard slipped on the oil, cracking his head on a beam. Medics rushing in as exposure loomed. Sirens faint but closing from the staged wreck upriver. Victory, but scarred. Routes compromised. Operations exposed to customs scrutiny. Her uncle's freedom bought with relocation and a severed tie to Guangzhou. As the team extracted under the returning lights, generators kicking in with a whine, Ji-hoon faced her amid the warehouse's echoing vastness, the river's hum, a steady backdrop. The threat was theirs, organized from the start, but you unraveled it. His hand found hers, not possessive now, but equal, a bridge over the chasm. "Marry me, not for debts or codes, but protection, trust, a family we choose." She searched his face, the push-pull resolving into quiet certainty. Autonomy intact, but transformed by the night's forge, loyalty earned, not imposed. "Yes," she whispered, the words sealing a future grounded in what they'd overcome. Betrayals exposed, threats neutralized by human grit and clever logistics. In the weeks that followed, the docks quieted, triads retreating under the weight of seized ledgers and international heat. Ji-hoon's empire endured, restrained by his code, but enriched by May's insights, her shop thriving as a legitimate front, her uncle safe in Busan. The marriage was simple, riverside under clear skies. No laughter from rivals, only the hum of a life rebuilt. Power faded. What remained was memory, the tire-iron swing, the ledger's secrets, and the found family that outlasted it all, a legacy of trust in the shadows. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of loyalty, danger, and found family. See you in the next story.